श्रीशैलाभिजनाम्बुराशशशिनं श्रीकृष्णतातात्मजं श्रीशैलान्वयदेवनाथसुधियप्राप्तागमान्तद्वयं पादाब्जे नरसिंहताते गुरोः न्यस्तात्मरक्षाभरं विद्वद्वृन्दचकोरचन्दिरमहं श्रीरामानुजार्यं विषये श्रीरङ्गसुधामधुसमास्वादयन्तं श्रीरङ्गमहिषी पदपङ्कजात्मजं सुलभाश्रयं सदा मोदसिद्धमद्भुतं भजेऽहं गुरुं तं रङ्गनाथप्रियं कृपासनस्थं हृदयाब्जपीठे चिन्मुद्रयालङ्कृतपाणिपद्मं शुभोपवीतं विमलोद्भपुण्ड्रं नमामि रङ्गं गुरुं अन्तरङ्गे नमामि योगसम्राज्ञीं विजयां विजयप्रदां श्रीरङ्गार्धासनासीनां करुणामोमातरं गुरुरूपपरञ्ज्योतिः ज्योतिरूपगुरुः परः अज्ञानमन्दिरं ह्येतत् गुरुविज्ञानमन्दिरं मुखं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवं योऽन्तः प्रविश्य मम वाचमिमां प्रसुप्तां सञ्जीवयत्यखिलशक्तिधरस्वधाम्ना अन्यांश्च हस्तचरणश्रवणत्वगादीन् प्राणान्नमो भगवते पुरुषाय तुभ्यं ज्ञानानन्दमयं देवं निर्मलस्फटिकाकृतिम् आधारं सर्वविद्यानां हयग्रीवमुपास्महे ज्ञानानन्दमयीं देवीं निर्मलस्फटिकाकृतिम् आधारं सर्वविद्यानां परां वाचमुपास्महे नारायण जयत्याश्रितसन्त्रास ध्वान्तविध्वंसनोदयः प्रभावान् सीतया देव्या परमव्योमभास्करः सकृदेव प्रपन्नाय तवास्मीति च याचते अभयं सर्वभूतेभ्यो ददाम्येतत्प्रदं मम ख्यातः श्रीरामदूतः पवनतनुभवः पिङ्गलाक्षशिखावान् सीताशोकापहारी दशमुखविजयी लक्ष्मणप्राणदाता आनीता भेषजात्रे लवणजलनिधेर्लङ्घने वीक्षितो यः वीरश्रीमान् हनुमान् मम मनसि वसन् कार्यसिद्धिं तनोतु यत्र यत्र रघुनाथकीर्तनं तत्र तत्र कृतमस्तकाञ्जलिं बाष्पवारि परिपूर्णलोचनं मारुतिं नमत राक्षसान्तकं। श्री सद्गुरुभ्यो नमः. Very warm welcome. Good evening and good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are.
Namaskaram.
Namaskaram. I hope you are able to hear me. Yes. This is an initiative which we pray to the Lord that He make this as His own Kainkaryam. We would like to essentially undertake a journey into the glorious chapters of Srimad Ramayanam, going by the name of Sri Sundara Kandam. Many of you have very openly and warmly agreed to go through these sessions. I am not sure whether some of you are aware what is in store for you. There are many of my friends I see here who have already attended our Bhagavad Gita sessions. We'd like to give a set of guidelines before we get into the actual session. The first thing is we have created a WhatsApp group, and this time, as they say, any activity we do, it calls for a Satya Sankalpam. We do Sankalpa, which is basically we resolve our mind in order to perform an act. That is called as Sankalpam. So the moment you clicked the link, that is also an act of sankalpam. We pray to the Lord of Ayodhya and his consort and Sri Hanuman to help us achieve this sankalpam in a glorious manner. This sankalpam is all about understanding Srimad Sundara Kandam. So the WhatsApp group that has been created is specifically meant for sessions that will happen. I presume that at the pace of probably 20 slokas a session, it may take 100 to 120 sessions, which basically means it calls for a long-term commitment. So those of you who are not ready or who are shocked to hear that it may take another 2 years or more for this to complete, you are always free to make a choice after this session. So, but those of you who want to continue, my sincere request is that you be available on a regular basis as long as possible, as much as possible. The WhatsApp group is meant for communication regarding the sessions in case there are any changes, etc. And I request that we do not have any forwards in this WhatsApp group, because most of us receive content anyway from many other WhatsApp groups. Let us retain this WhatsApp group primarily for the purpose of communication, either from here or as any questions or feedback pertaining to the sessions that we undertake. There may be other important communications that we can send from time to time, but largely let us keep that as a basis as for housekeeping. The other thing is these sessions will be for 45 minutes duration, unlike Srimad Bhagavad Gita, which was more of deep philosophical and, so to say, technical content. Whereas Srimad Ramayanam, the style of the epic, is very different. Therefore, we do not anticipate too much of an intellectual jugglery. This will largely be an emotional journey where we open our hearts in a true spirit of bhakti. Therefore, we have reduced the session to 45 minutes. At the same time, the last 5 minutes will be reserved for any question and answers. In the spirit of inquiry, we do not want this to be a monologue. Ideally, there probably will be questions that are lingering in your mind. You are free to ask them. You can go to the chat window during the session, and we will try to address anything if possible within the session. Otherwise, we'll do more homework and come back to you in the next session. So this will be largely interactive in that manner. In terms of what book you need to follow, I do not want to prescribe anything. As long as you have a version of Sundara Kandam at your home, which has been passed on from your previous generation, like the one we have here. This is something we would like to fondly recollect. And this was the Sri Kosham of Srimad Ramayanam, which was handed to my dear father by another Jan Paramacharya, Kanchi Kamakoti Paramacharya. And he used to use this for his own daily Parayanam. As long as you are able to read the original text from any book that you have, you are free to go through them. Of course, there are many different versions available for Srimad Ramayanam. There may be minor variances between what you see in your book and what we see here. Given that, unfortunately, I hold the mic here, I have the right of refusal. So we'll go through whatever is there in my version here. If there is any variance, please bear with me. That is something, of course, we can take a look at as a matter of later on discussion. So that's regarding the version of Srimad Sundara Kandam. Then in terms of the, what is the prerequisite required? What is the 101 course required before we get into Sundara Kandam? The answer is, as long as there is a clean slate of mind and no prejudice in the intellect, these sessions will be a smooth sail. And the reason I say that is that whenever there is and of course, I would like to also mention that this is a diverse crowd we have now. There are people who understand Telugu, Tamil, and other languages. That's the reason why I'm sticking to simple English as much as possible. We'll try to sprinkle in Tamil wherever it is required, or even Telugu where it is required. When it comes to sharing any content or Vishayam, there are 4 different aspects that we need to bear in mind. One is the Vishayam itself, the subject matter and content. The second is the Vishaya Karta, who has created the content. The third is the listeners or the audience, the Shrotas. And I believe the last quarter is the one who is distributing the information. Vishayata Vitaranam Pandrava. So luckily, this person sitting here is only 1/4 the factor contributing to your own experience of the Vishayam. And in that context, there is no need for any prerequisites as long as there is an openness and perhaps no prejudice to the various aspects of the Vishayam that is being shared. Now, the other thing is, I am here also as your Sahapati, that is Padam Sabrahmachari Bihi, as they say, right? Any Vishayam to understand. Acharyat Padamadatte, Padam Sishya Swamedhaya, Padam Sabrahmachari Bihi, Padam Kalena Vindati. Any aspect of subject that needs to get into our minds, we first seek a guru, understand a part from the guru. The other part comes from your own medhai, that is how much of an effort you invest in understanding that Vishayam. The third is along with Sab-Brahmacharis, that is those who are after acquiring the knowledge. Brahmachari in that context, not necessarily those who are unmarried. It also means those who are in the path of knowledge. And lastly, whatever is unknown and uncertain that has not been clarified so far is reserved for Kala. And Kala is nothing but experience. In that manner, I treat this as an aspect of learning along with my brahmacharis, which is basically the learned people here. Many of you are into various professions. You are all highly experienced, knowledgeable people, quite accustomed to logical thinking and so on. So I am basically a small part of this whole equation. So please treat me as a Sahapati. That is the other request I have. In terms of the sessions, we do not intend these sessions to be something where we teach you how to chant Srimad Sundara Kandam. We will go through the shlokas, we'll try to understand and interpret their meanings, shloka by shloka. So therefore, there is ample opportunity to learn about Sundara Kandam and perhaps even Srimad Ramayanam. But if you would like to treat this as a chanting session, I beg your pardon. Probably there will be better other avenues. My voice is also not popular. The throat doesn't help me much. So you probably learn chanting better elsewhere. Treat these as sessions more for acquiring jnana and bhakti. And in terms of the style of these sessions, the style will be as follows. I do not get anywhere close to the famous Upanyasakas that you see on YouTube, including the likes of Sri Velukudi Swami or Sri Dushyant Sridhar or several other luminaries who have enough content which they have generously shared on YouTube. But the style of our sessions is more into deeper understanding, which is traditionally called as Kalakshepam. What it means is spending time in a fruitful manner, or it is also called as Swadhyaya. Swadhyaya calls for, as they say in English, can you step back and think aloud? So therefore, while the focus of, shorter versions of Upanyasams is basically for general awareness of what Sundara Kandam is, when it comes to learning or getting closer to Sri Rama, it makes sense to delve deeper. So our sessions will be oriented primarily towards the Swadhyaya style. Okay, that is the reason why this will be, I was telling Sundar Mama yesterday, this will be another long goods train, as they call in India. This may go on for several weeks with the Lord's divine grace, and with his Shakti, we'll try to go through these sessions. So that's the thing I wanted to mention in terms of the style of these sessions. In terms of whether the qualifications for the learner and the qualifications for the person who is distributing it, well, I don't claim to have any qualification here. The only thing that I can claim to have as qualification is I have been really fortunate enough to have been close to a few great people who have not only seen Srimad Ramayanam in terms of the shlokas, not only understood its meanings, but also have extracted the saram of Srimad Ramayanam and have imbibed that in their living. Of course, many of them are no more on this earth. That is the only qualification that we deem to possess, again by the divine Lord's grace. As they say, Nirantaram Rama Rasayanam Piba, Nirantaram Krishna Rasayanam Piba, அப்படின்னு குலசேகர ஆழ்வார்து. நிரந்தரம் ராம ரசாயனம் பிபா அப்படின்னு சொல்லக்கூடிய பெரிய வாழ்க்கிட்ட நம்ம இருந்திருக்கோம். இன்ஃபேக்ட் I've seen my own father when he used to chant Srimad Ramayanam. There were occasions where there were no words that would come out. He would simply choke. That shows the real nature of what is called as Parayanam. So as one of the goals that we have set forth from here is that because of the sessions, even if you get a little inclination towards doing a real Parayanam in the real sense, that is something really great, and we pass it on that as a karma phalam to the divine Lord. Now, a little bit more in terms of housekeeping. We will have these sessions every Sunday. That is 7:15 UK time to 8 AM UK time. And we request you to be available, whoever wants to attend regularly. After hearing all of this, if you still have the manas to be there regularly, please feel free to come on every Sunday. And of course, the only little requirement that we ask of you is that you will shortly get into the detail of what this kavyam is about, or what this itihasam is about. To respect the subject matter, we have to be pure from a trikarana perspective. மூன்று கரணங்களும் சுத்தமா இருக்கணும். என்னது? ஷரீரம், வாக்கு, மனசு. இது மூணும் சுத்தமா இருக்கணும். They can be in whatever other state before or after this session, But during this session, at least maybe we'll try to maintain purity in all these three formats. Therefore, if at all you are attending it early morning, please pardon me, kindly take a snanam and then attend these sessions. That's the humble request we have. No other restriction on dress code and so on. But so that is something, it will be good, because the moment you take a bath, it not only purifies your body, but automatically your mind will also get into the direction of purity. Then, of course, as a prerequisite, we have already mentioned, the lesser the prejudice we have, the more we will become like the sponge which can soak in the Amritam of Srimad Ramayanam. And of course, we will add the ongoing Zoom link to the WhatsApp groups, a profile itself, so that you don't have to search for it for every class. We'll create only one link. That link will be applicable to all classes. Okay, anybody who wants to attend, just click on the WhatsApp group details and you'll get the Zoom link. So as I have already mentioned, the other big factor of luck I have is, இப்போ நம்ம ஒரு உடம்பு சரியில்லாத போயிடுத்து, we are sick, we go to a pharmacist, we get the medicine. Let's say we have a severe headache and we take let's say a crocin or a paracetamol. It cures us of that disease. So if I ask you the question, well, did you notice that the medicine was given by an ugly looking gentleman? அப்படின்னு கேட்டா, the answer is it has no correlation to your own getting cured by the medicine. So therefore, I stand on that power. The medicine that is given here is by none other than sage Valmiki. The subject matter is that of the Lord and his entire retinue of devatas. And the shrotas here, as long as we are all Shraddhalus, we have that Shraddha and Bhakti, then the medicine will work. The pharmacist can be as ugly as that person wants to be. So that's the power of the medicine that we bank upon. So that's the small, PTK for housekeeping. There's a longer PTK coming for the subject matter itself. What we will do is, I would like to request Sundar Mama to, if he's still online, to come on video and share a few words of blessings and encouragement, and then what we'll do is I'll get on to the session immediately after that. He's traveling, right? Let me see. I guess they're traveling right now. That's okay. I think he has not heard us from here. That's fine. So we'll have him talk to us in the next session or the future sessions. Okay. What we'll do now is we will get on to the subject matter here, which is Sundara Kandam. This is one of the most popular chapters of Srimad Valmiki Ramayanam. It has been made more popular compared to the other kandas like Sri Bala Kandam, Ayodhya Kandam, Aranya Kandam, Kishkinda Kandam, or Yuddha Kandam. Sundara Kandam is the most popular among all the chapters in Srimad Valmiki Ramayanam. And the primary reason for that, perhaps, is the fact that as human beings, we all get various forms of afflictions. These could be physical afflictions, mental afflictions, or spiritual afflictions. And in order to seek any course of correction, there are many different things we adopt. So we do either japa, we do puja of devatas. One of the things that is also recommended and is very popular is that of Sundara Kanda Parayana. That is, if you go through the slokas, if you recite them, there are 2,880 plus slokas in Sri Sundara Kandam. Then you will rid yourself of many types of afflictions. It is not just a matter of faith there, but if done properly, it is also quite a scientific approach for us to get rid of these afflictions. So therefore, it is one of the most popular chapters in Srimad Valmiki Ramayanam. And today, I mean, we have very few people who can chant Sri Sundara Kandam end to end without looking at the Sri Kosham. But at least 50 years ago, we used to have many people in our societies and communities who could chant the entire Srimad Ramayanam consisting of 24,000 shlokas. So therefore, whatever we are doing here is a very little seva in that direction. Now, in order to perform Sri Sundara Kanda Parayanam, again, I am no subject matter expert in terms of what shlokas should you chant so that my right shoulder moves, or I get a job in the next 10 days. I am not a subject matter expert for that. There are, of course, different ways of chanting these shlokas. How frequently should you chant these shlokas? In what paksham should you chant? How many shlokas should you chant per day? How many chapters should you chant per day? How are you supposed to conduct the puja of the Divine Lord during chanting, etc., etc. We will not get into those niyamams. Again, they are available plenty in many sources. As we have already mentioned, the purpose of our sessions here is to dive deeper. So in that context, the one thing that we will adopt is there is a paddhati for performing the Sundarakanda Parayanam that is done by anybody who does this Parayanam. And we typically start by doing Achamanam. And Achamanam, as most of you know, we think of the Divine Lord and we essentially use water for those of you who are not familiar, and then perform Achyutaya Namaha, Anantaya Namaha, Govindaya Namaha, and then touch the various parts of our body. All of this has really scientific meaning and temperament, which has been lost over the several years. That is reserved for another occasion. But after Achamanam, we do Pranayamam, and then we do a Sankalpam. And in this Sankalpam, we invoke the divine power of the Lord, that may He be with us when we chant Srimad Sundarakandam. And of course, there are different vidhanam depending on whether you belong to the which darshanam, are you belonging to the Vaishnava darshanam or Shaiva darshanam, etc. The way we tell the Sankalpam differs. And the easiest thing to adopt is whatever has been handed down to you from your parents. There is no need to reinvent the clock, so to say. And it is the path of least resistance to attain the Lord. Therefore, if you look at any classic Srimad Ramayana book, there will be three traditions: the Madhva tradition, the Sri Vaishnava tradition, and the Smartha tradition. So what we need to normally do is, before the class commences, this will be a set of shlokas that you need to recite before looking at the shlokas themselves. And these are shlokas which we chant before the session starts, But towards the end of the sessions, we chant what are known as the Mangala Shlokas. The Mangala Shlokas are supposed to confer divine bounties. And it is mandatory that the Mangala Shlokas are also chanted at the end of every chanting session. But I think, given the fact that we have a diverse set of people here, many of you may or may not be familiar with how to chant, etc. What we will do is, those of you who can, and who have the time and energy, what you could do is, before you attend the session every Sunday, okay, you chant the set of slokas. I can share the Sampradayam specific slokas on the WhatsApp, okay, depending on whether you belong to which of the traditions, you chant them. Towards the end, again, the Mangala Shlokas, after the class is over, you are free to again chant them. But for those of you who will not be able to do it, don't mind. I will think of the Lord and we will do it here, before and after the class. We will take care of that. Now, in terms of the session itself, maybe we'll start with the so I, being a Sri Vaishnava, I'll look at the Sri Vaishnava way of starting the Srimad Sundara Kandam session. We'll chant those slokas first. I request, at this point of time, you can get into a state of meditation. By the way, I did not announce how long this first session will be. Expect the next half an hour to go into the initial foundation. The foundation may continue to overflow into the first session also. Please bear with me as usual. Okay. I can't go with a strict time here, for the simple reason that the content itself is so deep that and we do not want to constrain ourselves by time. Om Shuklam Vardharam Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasanna Dhyayete Sarva Vignopashanti. पुस्तके श्री रामचंद्रम ध्यायामि श्री रामचंद्रम आवाहयामि आसनं समर्पयामि वाद्यं समर्पयामि अर्घ्यं समर्पयामि आचमनीयं समर्पयामि मधुपर्कं समर्पयामि वस्त्रं यज्ञोपवीतं समर्पयामि उत्तरीयं समर्पयामि आभरणार्थम् अक्षतां समर्पयामि गन्धान् धारयामि गन्धोपरि अक्षतान् समर्पयामि ओम श्री केशवाय नमः नारायणाय नमः माधवाय नमः गोविन्दाय नमः विष्णवे नमः मधुसूदनाय नमः त्रिविक्रमाय नमः वामनाय नमः श्रीधराय नमः श्रीकेशाय नमः पद्मनाभाय नमः दामोदराय नमः ओम श्री रामाय नमः श्री रामभद्राय नमः ओम श्री रामचंद्राय नमः ओम श्री वेदसे नमः ओम श्री दासरथे नमः ओम श्री रघुनाथाय नमः ओम श्री नाथाय नमः ओम श्री सीताया पतये नमः ओम श्री रामचंद्राय नमः उपमाग्रापयामि दीपं प्रदर्शयामि क्षीरं निवेदयामि ताम्बूलं ताम्बूलं समर्पयामि कर्पूरनीरं समर्पयामि चामरं समर्पयामि श्रीरामचंद्राय नमः गीतं समर्पयामि समस्तोपचारार्थं समर्पयामि अनेक कोटि प्रदक्षिणा नमस्कारं समर्पयामि। पूजन्तं राम रामेति मधुरं मधुराक्षरम् आरुह्य कविता शाखां वन्दे वाल्मीकिकोकिलं वाल्मीकिर्मुनिसिंहस्य कवितावनचार्यः शृण्वन् रामकथानादं को न याति परां गतिं यं पिबन् सततं रामचरितामृतसागरम् अतृप्तस्तं मुनिं वन्दे प्राचेतसकमल्मषम् गोष्पदीकृतवाराशिं मतकीकृतराक्षसं रामायण महामाला रत्नं वन्दे नीलात्मजम् अंजनानन्दवीरं जानकी शोकनाशनं कपीशमक्षहन्तारं वन्दे लङ्काभयङ्करं मनोजवं मारुततुल्यवेगं जितेन्द्रियं बुद्धिमतां वरिष्ठं वातात्मजं वानरयूथमुख्यं श्रीरामदूतं शिरसा नमामि उल्लङ्घ्य सिन्धो सलिलं सलीलं यशोकवह्निं जनकात्मजायाः आदाय तेनैव ददालङ्कां नमामि तं प्राञ्जलिराञ्जनेयम् आञ्जनेयमतिपाटलाननं काञ्चनाद्रिकमनीयविग्रहं पारिजाततरुमूलवासिनं भावयामि पौमाननन्दनं यत्र यत्र रघुनाथकीर्तनं तत्र तत्र कृतमस्तकाञ्जलिं बाष्पवारि परिपूर्णलोचनं मारुतिं नमत राक्षसान्तकं वेदवेद्यपरे पुंसि जाते दशरथात्मजे वेदप्राचेतसादासीत् साक्षात् रामायणात्मना तदुपगत समास संधियोगं सममधुरोपनार्थवाक्यबद्धं रघुवरचरितं मुनिप्रणीतं दशशिरसश्च वधं निशामयत्वं श्रीराघवं दशरथात्मजमप्रमेयं सीतापतिं रघुकुलान्वयरत्नदीपम् आजानुबाहुम् अरविन्ददलायताक्षं रामं निशाचरविनाशकरं नमामि वैदेही सहितं सुरद्रुमतले हैमे महामण्डपे मध्ये पुष्पकमासने मणिमये वीरासने सुस्थितम् अग्रे वासेति प्रभञ्जनसुते तत्त्वं मुनिभ्यः परं व्याख्यान्तं भरतादिभिः परिवृतं रामं भजे श्यामलम्. We'll have the opportunity to go through many of these shlokas during the session. What I will now do is to quickly go through the Balakandam, and there is a reason why I would like to do that. What I suggest is, today being Akshay Tritiya, you please repeat after me for the first sloka. If you unmute yourself, it will become it will not be so easy for everybody to listen. So please be on mute in your respective homes. Please chant this after me. Tapaswadhyaya niratam tapasvi vagvidambaram naradam paripapracha valmikir muni pungavam konvasmin sampratam loke गुणवान् कश्च वीर्यवान् धर्मज्ञश्च कृतज्ञश्च सत्यवाक्यो दृढव्रतः चारित्रेण च को युक्तः सर्वभूतेषु को हितः विद्वान् कः कः समर्थश्च कश्चैक प्रियदर्शनः आत्मवान् को जितक्रोधो द्युतिमान् को न सूयकः कस्य बिभ्यति देवाश्च जातरोषस्य संयुगे एतदिच्छाम्यहं श्रोतुम् परं कौतूहलं हि मे महर्षे त्वं समर्थोऽसि ज्ञातुमेवं विधं नरम्. So that is for the sake of Shastras. We are supposed to learn something new, and nothing better to learn Srimad Ramayanam itself. Now, in terms of the subject matter, this is all about Srimad Sundara Kandam. But if I were to, let's say you want to visit a particular, let's say, X-ray laboratory in a hospital, and let's say that hospital is known as St. Helier's Hospital. Now, if somebody were to give you direction to the X-ray lab, it will not be actually something that you will understand unless somebody gives you the direction for the hospital itself, because the lab is a small part of the hospital itself. So therefore, using the similar analogy, without understanding Srimad Ramayanam, what is the subject matter, who is the creator of Srimad Ramayanam, and how are we supposed to understand Srimad Ramayanam, it perhaps will not make much sense to go through Sri Sundara Kandam, which is a part of Srimad Ramayanam. Therefore, let us look at the origin of Srimad Ramayanam itself. So most of us, of course, are quite familiar with it. But Srimad Ramayanam is something like, coffee, the daily coffee that we take. Nethi saaptachi coffee, இன்னைக்கு வேண்டான்னு சொல்றோமோ. We will not say no to a coffee whenever you are offered. So it is like that. Basically, how many ever times you hear or listen about Srimad Ramayanam, because of the nature of the subject here, it talks about the Divine Lord. It will always make proper sense to us. So in that context, please bear with me if it is a repetition. You would have heard in many other forums. But we deem it as a necessary condition for the future sessions and the way we treat these sessions. This is based on, again, whatever little we have heard from my own gurus. Now, if you were to look at the very first shloka of Srimad Ramayanam, as the name indicates, Srimad Ramayanam is Ramasya Ayanam is Ramayanam. It is all about Sri Ramachandra, and Ayanam means Margam. The book that was authored by Sri Valmiki Maharshi has 24,000 odd shlokas. And over the years, it is quite possible that, there might have been some new shlokas added, some original shlokas deleted, and so on. But largely, the structure of Srimad Ramayanam has withstood the test of time. So, Bhandarkar Oriental Research Institute, they did quite a bit of research into looking at various manuscripts in those days and arrived at the most authentic form of the core structure of Srimad Ramayanam. So now we don't want to get into the debates of when was it written, how many slokas were there originally. They are all of statistical and interest to academicians. But our focus is more in terms of getting access to the nectar or amritam inside Srimad Ramayanam. So that is the view with which we are getting in. Therefore, Ramasya Ayanam is Ramayanam. That which takes you closer to Sri Rama is Srimad Ramayanam. And do these shlokas, when we chant them, do they really take you to Srimad Ramachandra? That is the question that we should ask. If these shlokas do not take us there, then basically the fact is that we are not in a state of understanding the shlokas or realizing their true intent. So it goes back to the issue of prejudice. The more the prejudice we have for or against it, the more we'll get colored. So therefore, we need to get into a state of understanding these shlokas in such a manner that they really become a path to attaining Lord Rama. And if you were to look at who created this, it was created by a sage called Valmiki. We all know the story of Sri Valmiki Maharshi. He is known as an Adikavi, the very first poet in Sanskrit. And really, if you were to look at the field of science or any other research field, the very first theories that were made were very simple. The atom consists of protons, neutrons, and electrons. Very simple theory, isn't it? But அதை கண்டுபிடிக்கிறதுக்குன்னு ஒரு எஃபர்ட் போட்டிருக்கா. Whoever has come up with that theory, they have spent a lot of effort. But the theory itself is easy to understand in such a manner, in such a similar manner. Srimad Ramayanam, because it is written by the Adikavi, is written in Anushtup Chandas, largely. Okay? And it is very, very easy for anybody to chant these shlokas. And they do not make, when you chant these shlokas, they apparently make an impact on our body, mind, and spirit. And the impact that they carry is actually long term. So that is the nature of the work of an Adikavi. He was not only a poet, right? Calling Sri Valmiki as a poet is actually an insult. Being a poet, if you were to dig deeper, who can be a poet? A person who understands the subject matter that he is going to write about, a person who knows the world of language and therefore communicate it in the proper manner, and of course the person who is closer to reality and he or she respects the emotions of the readers. Only such a person can become a poet. And the crucial underlying condition is that in this case, sage Valmiki was himself not just a Kavi. Kavi is basically a byproduct. But who was he? He was actually a great sage or a Jnani. Now, where do we have proof for this? Am I talking sense? Am I talking reality? The fact is that many of the great Jnanis and saints of India, they have left something in their works. Whatever work they have come up with, they have embedded certain secrets. They do speak about themselves in their work, okay? So that generations later will not confuse them for who they were not or who they were actually were. So in that context, if you were to look at the very first shloka, tapas swadhyaya niratam tapasvi vagvidam varam naradam paripapracha valmikihi munipungavam. The fact that sage Valmiki, we all know he emerged from Valmika, which is basically converted into, translated into an ant hill. Valmikam in Sanskrit means an ant hill. We know that he actually was initiated by sage Narada into the Rama Japam, right? He was asked to chant Mara, Mara, Mara because he was actually, so to say, a thief. And if you were to give reality or truth to people who are not in a state of understanding reality, who are confused, then nalla oru palatha, if you were to put it inside the mouth of somebody who has fever, ava enna pannuva theriyumo, toonu thuppitruva. That actually what you are giving them is amritam, but because of their disease in their body, they will vomit it out. Similarly, Valmiki was perhaps engrossed in the state of Prakriti, and by God's grace, he got into contact with sage Narada, who initiated him not in Rama Mantram, but very technically he gave him Mara, and he kept chanting it, right? Mara, 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 Mara. And then finally, as they say in the Upanishads, Om Satyatma Pranaramam Mana Anandam Shanti Samruddham Amritam Iti Prachina Yogyopasva. This is there in Taittiriya Upanishad. Satyatma Pranaramam Mana Anandam. The chanting of Rama Mantram eventually leads you into withdrawing your senses and getting into a state of yoga. And with the grace of the Divine Lord, who is also our Antaryami, he realized the truth of the Satyam, Satya Vastu called Sri Rama. But he wanted to know who this individual was. So what happens is, the Lord is so compassionate that he is not only an Avyakta Purusha, that is one who is beyond our senses, but for ordinary people like us to understand, grasp who he is, நம்மளுக்கு எப்படின்னாக்கா, we are all so attached to our senses. So the moment I close the, I stop the video here, you get distracted, right? The fact is that we are so sensitive. Sensitive carries the word senses. So likewise, what we hear on a day-to-day basis, what we speak, what we eat, they all make an impact on our body. So therefore, it is only the duty of the Divine Lord that he attracts us somehow to himself. And the only way he can do it is by appearing in front of us like a human being. Only then we all will believe. Yeah, Pratyaksham Pramanam. Whatever is there in front of us, only we are willing to accept as truth. Unfortunately, Paroksha Priya Hivai Devaha. The Devas are the divine people. They like not to be in Pratyaksham, but in Paroksham. They believe in an inward-looking way of leading life. So therefore, the reference here that we want to make is Tapaswadhyaya Niratam Tapasvi Vakvidam Varam Naradam Paripapracha Valmikihi Munipungavam. So he asked Narada that you have initiated me into Ramamantram, no doubt. But now I think I have reached a stage where I want to understand further, certain things. So in the very first slokam, the fact that Valmiki is approaching sage Narada, he describes who that sage Narada is. Tapas Swadhyaya Niratam. So the sage Narada is somebody who is constantly in a state of tapas. And what is tapas? Tapas is nothing but tapam. We get into a state of, allowing the senses to not go outwards, but to go inwards. Swadhyaya Niratam. He is eternally into the self-learning mode. Swadhyayam means self-learning. What does he learn here after all? He is a great sage. There is nothing more to learn. Abdi kadiyadu. Ananta vaihi Vedaha. Vedas are so many in number that there is so much to learn about the universe, which is the creation of the Lord, that we should not belittle learning. Learning should be constant in our lives. So we should take motivation from sage Narada. Niratam Tapasvi Vagvidam Varam. He is also a Vagvidam Varam. Those who know how to speak, he is the best among those who can speak. Anale, Narada is not somebody to be taken lightly. He can speak very, very well with any type of person. And Valmiki asks Narada, who is also a Munipungavaha. Munipungavaha means he is the preeminent among all sages. He is sage Narada. What does he ask him? Kon vasmin sampratam loke gunavan kascha viryavan. He asks sage Narada, who is that person currently in this world? Asmin sampratam loke, in this world right now. Gunavan kaha kascha viryavan. Who is somebody who has all adorable characters and attributes, and who is also a man of valor. Dharmajnaha, Kritagnaha, Satyavakyaha, Dridhavrataha. So one who is established in dharma, one who is a Kritagnya. Kritagnyana enade? One who knows if somebody, one who is grateful, yeah, Kritagnya, one who is grateful. So you do some work and then the person reciprocates with, thank you, sir. So that person is a Kritagnya. No. Kritagnya means Kriti nale creation. One who knows his entire creation is a Kritagnya. So who is a person who knows what he creates and in a manner of perfection that goes along with it. Satyavakyaha, one who is always in the mode of speaking the truth. Dridhavrataha, one who has such a sankalpa, who takes vows in such a manner that he always sees results from those sankalpa. Charitrena cha koyuktaha, one who is endowed with good conduct and character. Sarvabhuteshu kohitaha, one who is also interested in the benefit of everybody else. இப்படின்னு பல விதமான குணங்களை பத்தி கேட்டு வர்றார். Who is that person who is adorable and of whom I can actually write? அப்படிங்கிற இது வருதுங்க. He wants to start, he has gotten into the mood of a Kavi because he was a Valmiki. He started doing penance so much and he is right now at the cusp of understanding a divine personality. So he goes on to ask sage Narada, Atmavan kaha, Jitakrodhaha, Dyutiman kaha, Anasuyakaha kaha, who is somebody who is endowed with Atmajnana, who is a Jitakrodha, one who has won over his anger, one who has tejas, Dyutiman kaha, Anasuyakaha, Kasya Bibhyati Devascha, who are the Devas themselves afraid of, and Jata Roshasya Samyage, whenever he gets into a state of war. Etadichhamyaham shrotum param kautuhalam hime. I would like to hear this from you, O Narada. It is in fact a great matter of curiosity for me. Maharshe tvam samarthosi jnatum evam vidam naram. O Maharshi, you are the only one who is really capable of answering my question and who also knows an individual, Naraha, who has all these attributes. So there are some things we need to observe here. These questions are asked by an important person who is a seeker of knowledge. He is not an ordinary person. And who is he asking? He is not going somebody who is the head of marketing, in the ஊர்ல இருக்கிறவன் யாருப்பா நல்லவன் அப்படின்னா you will point to the counselor of your locality. Yeah. And the madri, somebody who doesn't get into the act of pleasing somebody. No, sage Narada is bound to truth, right? Therefore, and of that fact, Valmiki is also very aware. He knows that sage Narada is not going to fool him around. So there is a matter of trust between the teacher and the disciple here. That is something important for us to notice, okay? And the fact that he is going to talk about a great personality, it results into Narada himself, getting into that mode of telling sage Valmiki about who that person is. Bahavo dullabhascheva etvaya kirtita gunaha mune vakshyamyaham buddhva tairyukta shruyatan naraha. So from then on, we'll take this in our next class. But Sri Narada, he starts talking about the fact that all these characters, it is very impossible for an individual to have them in this real world. It's very, very difficult to find a person who has all these attributes, okay? But I know one such person. And then he goes on to describe about Sri Rama. One of the things we should notice here is that many times we question, the moment we start talking about Ayodhya or Srimad Ramayanam, we are branded as communal persons, You are interested in Hindutva and all kinds of things, allegations. We do not want to get into those kinds of secular or political issues. Let us stick to the subject matter. Today, if we want to talk about nuclear physics, we do not go and read Daily Mail or Telegraph and talk about nuclear physics. What is the source of content for any meaningful discussion? We go to an academician who is proficient in nuclear physics and talk about nuclear physics only with that person, or those who are authorized by that person, who have learnt proper nuclear physics under him, to be able to say, well, there is a war going on, and one of the nuclear power plants was taken over by the head of a state. There is radiation leaking. அப்படின்னு pressல வந்துரும். Now, what's the level of leakage? What really happened there? To scientifically understand, the IAEA has to, IAEA அப்படின்னு சொல்லல, International Atomic Energy Agency, இல்லையா, IAEA. They send their researchers to go and figure out what actually happened. Luckily, we still resort to such people for truthful information. Just like that, why I mentioned that is, Srimad Ramayanam is a book of not just poems. It is a book of reality. There are lots of real life situations that we are going to see. At the same time, the person who wrote it was no less than a scientist. In the fact of inquiry, he did reach the right person, in this case, Sage Narada. Not only that, Guru Solitar, அப்படின்ட்டு காத மூடின்னு இருக்கல. In the Balakandam chapter 3, we will also see how Sage Valmiki also puts in some self-effort. That is what is lacking today, we believe. That, we resort to a Guru, who is responsible for many, many people, forgetting the fact that there are many pearls of wisdom that they ask us to do, which we don't do. Conveniently, we say, அவர் பார்த்துக்கலையா, நம்மளாம் ஒன்றும் பண்ண வேண்டாம் அப்படின்ட்டு. அப்படி கிடையாது. What we see here is a paddhati of acquiring real knowledge. So hopefully, we will get into that deep journey, into understanding the foundations of Srimad Ramayanam. I'm not sure how many sessions it might take. After that, we will start Srimad Sundara Kandam. Even there, I believe we will take the last chapter of Kishkinda Kandam and then get into Sundara Kandam for a specific reason. Okay. So with these words, I would like to conclude our session today. What we'll do is, I will just chant the Mangala Shlokams, and then we will have a small song, and then we'll conclude it. Okay. I'm looking at the Sri Vaishnava Sampradayam of Mangala Shlokam. एवमेतत् पुरावृत्तम् आख्यानं भद्रवस्तुवः प्रव्याहरतस्त्युक्तं बलं विष्णो प्रवर्धतां लाभस्तेषां जयस्तेषां कुतस्तेषां पराभवः येषाम् इन्दीवरश्यामो हृदये सुप्रतिष्ठितः काले वर्षतु पर्जन्यः पृथिवी सस्यशालिनी देशोऽयं क्षोभरहितो ब्राह्मणाः सन्तु निर्भयाः कावेरी वर्धतां काले काले वर्षतु वासः श्रीरङ्गनाथो जयतु श्रीरङ्गश्रीश्च वर्धतां स्वस्ति प्रजाभ्यः परिपालयन्तां न्याय्येन मार्गेण महीं महिषाः गोब्राह्मणेभ्यः शुभमस्तु नित्यं लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु मङ्गलं कोसलेन्द्राय महनीय गुणाब्धे चक्रवर्ती तनूजाय सार्वभौमाय मङ्गलं वेद वेदान्त वेद्याय मेघश्यामलमूर्ते पुंसां मोहन रूपाय पुण्यश्लोकाय मङ्गलं विश्वामित्रान्तरङ्गाय मिथिला नगरीपतेः भाग्यानां परिपाकाय भव्यरूपाय मङ्गलं पितृभक्ताय सततं भ्रातृभिः सह सीतया नन्दिता किललोकाय रामभद्राय मङ्गलं त्यक्तसाकेतवासाय चित्रकूटविहारिणे सेव्याय सर्वैनां धीरोदाराय मङ्गलं सौमित्रिणा च जानक्या चापबाणासिधारिणे संसेव्याय सदा भक्त्या स्वामिने मम मङ्गलम् दंडकारण्यवासाय खंडितामरशत्रवे गृध्रराजाय भक्ताय मुक्तिदायास्तु मङ्गलं सादरं शबरीदत्त फलमूलाभिलाषिणे सौलभ्य परिपूर्णाय सत्त्वोद्रिक्ताय मङ्गलं हनुमत्समवेताय हरीशाभीष्टदायिने वालिप्रमथनायास्तु महाधीराय मङ्गलं श्रीमते रघुवीराय सेतुल्लङ्घितसिन्धवे जितराक्षसराजाय रणधीराय मङ्गलम् आसाद्यनगरीं दिव्याम् अभिषिक्ताय सीतया राजाधिराजराजाय रामभद्राय मङ्गलं मङ्गलाशासनपदैः मदाचार्य पुरोगमैः सर्वैश्च पूर्वैराचार्यैः सत्कृतायास्तु मङ्गलम्. நீங்க பாட்டு பாடுங்க.
ஓ ராம ஸ்ரீ ஓ ராம ஸ்ரீ ராம ரகுராம ஓ ராம ஸ்ரீ ராம ரகுராம ஓராயிரம் நாமம் கொண்ட ஸ்ரீ பரந்தாம ஓராயிரம் நாமம் கொண்ட ஸ்ரீ பரந்தாம ஓ ராம ஸ்ரீராம தந்தை சொல்காத்திடவே தம்பியும் தாரமும் தந்தை சொல்காத்திடவே தம்பியும் தாரமும் தன்னுடன் தோடரவனம் சென்ற ராமா தந்தை சொல்காத்திடவே தம்பியும் தாரமும் தன்னுடன் தோடரவனம் சென்ற ராமா தீராவினை தேக்கும் தேவ்ய தாரக நாம தீராவினை தீர்க்கும் தேவ்ய தாரக நாம தீனர்கருள் புரியும் கோதண்ட ராமா தீனர்கருள் புரியும் கோதண்ட ராமா ஓ ராம ஸ்ரீராம ரகுராம ஓ ராம ஸ்ரீராம ரகுராம ஓராயிரம் நாமம் கொண்ட ஸ்ரீ பரந்தாம ஓராயிரம் நாமம் கொண்ட ஸ்ரீ பரந்தாம ஓ ராம ஸ்ரீராம.
So thank you very much for the patient listening. If you have any questions or comments or concerns, you can WhatsApp me privately or into the group if it's relevant to the group. The only thing is the timing unfortunately is not negotiable. So we'll stick to the Sunday 7:15 to 8 a.m. UK time, and kindly make it your schedule, you work your schedule around that time. So that's the only request we have. Yeah. Okay. Narayana.
Namaskar.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Namaskaram. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Namaskaram. Thank you.
Ram Ram.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
ಧನ್ಯವಾದ ಅಣ್ಣ.
Adiyan, Vinyasmi Anna.
Annyeonghaseyo.
Annyeonghaseyo Anna.
Adiyan.
Thank you. Namaskar.
Srinivasa Raghavan. So thanks. Knowledge about it. ரொம்ப சந்தோஷம் திருப்பி ஆரம்பிச்சதுக்கு.
People are leaving, so